Hi guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The World Championship continues onwards, but big roster drama going down in North America, especially for teams that aren't even there at the World Championship right now. Cloud9 did not qualify for this year's World Championship, but what a change they've made given what they've done over the last couple of years. Plus Rooney, minus Rooney, plus Rooney is what they've done, and now they're going at the Vanity direction as well. Vanity gone from the team. Likely, they're not going to bring it back unless they're going to do what they've done previously. What does that mean for their team? What direction are they going to take next? Which players are they going to build around Cloud9 given all that's going on around the rest of the world of VALORANT? Very much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. First of all, just some further reaction to the fact that Gen.G, the team that were literally the favourites for this entire tournament, they've bowed out already, right? They couldn't make it out of their groups. Heretics took them down. Sentinels took them down. And that's GG. So Gen.G, they fall short. Heretics, of course, and Sentinels advance. Those games actually turned out to be the most viewed of the entire tournament so far. So Lev versus Talon, G2 Paper X, Gen.G Heretics. But then the two games that have been the most viewed have been the two big games, at least for Sentinels, with the day 1 and then the day 9 version of Gen.G versus Sentinels, both resulting in the highest peak viewerships so far. So yeah, I mean, no real surprises there. But as Zeltis says, they said I was crazy. I am. 2-0 versus Gen.G. Big time result for Sentinels and those guys. They're going to move on to the bracket play. There's been some questions what the bracket's going to look like. We're going to find out very shortly. And I'm sure we'll talk about it tomorrow, what the bracket is actually going to be for the playoffs of this tournament. But, you know, Tender's obviously been talking about the haters. Sentinels have been talking as follows. And we'll just find quickly, because it's due to be announced relatively shortly, what the plan is going to be for the playoff bracket. This is Zekan's prediction on what they're going to come up with here. So he reckons Gen.G 2, Fnatic versus Trace Esports, Vitality Lev versus DRX. Obviously we have a result there, and then PRX versus or Edward Gaming versus Team Heretics, of course. So I mean, yeah, if this actually happens, it would be kind of unbelievable. Ideally, they should try and, like, avoid, I would say, the in-region matchups round 1. Like, it's ideal probably not to have the two teams from the Americas play, but then again, if it's going to be first seed versus second seed, then that's just going to be how it's done, right? You go through and you decide who plays who, and maybe it's just randomly drawn. We'll see what they come up with over the coming hours, of course. But yesterday, speaking of Fnatic, they did take down Crew Esports, and this was a competitive affair, right? I mean, game 1, Crew Esports started well. They eventually get the W on the Sunset, 13-11. Fnatic made a nice comeback, but in the end, it wasn't quite enough. But from that point on in the series, Fnatic definitely took control, and it was Durka especially that really took over here. Durka's performance, the entire series, certainly the final map on the Lotus, was absolutely ridiculous, and this is kind of what we've been waiting for from Durka, really. It is kind of incredible to think about the fact that it wasn't that long ago we were having conversations on Fnatic aren't looking so hot, they might need to make a roster change, and if they do, Durka was potentially on the chopping block. Now, to be fair, if Fnatic are forced to make a change, the likely thing that they will probably do is change out their in-game leader. I like Boaster, but I think that, you know, if they bomb out of this tournament now, and I don't think they will, but if they were to, and they don't make it any further than they currently have, I think Boaster is probably the player under the most pressure, but it wasn't that long ago, and of course, like, Hero is there as well, but Leo will probably come back in, that type of stuff. But it wasn't long ago that Durka was, you know, definitely underperforming from his own standards and from the team standards. But he's obviously found his groove again, because 30-11 on the Rays, on Lotus, of course, the deciding map, 453 ACS, just ridiculous. So, yeah, Durka ends out the series, plus 23, with over-averaging a 300 ACS over the series on the Rays and the Yoru. So, yeah, not bad work at all. And both had a good series, apart from, you know, the Lotus wasn't great in terms of damage, but, like, who cares? Because Durka was doing absolutely everything. So, yeah, fair play to Durka. Good to see him back really on form, because one of the most exciting players to watch, and it seems like he's able to get back to those levels just about now, on to at least some degree. The other game that just concluded before we talk Rostermania stuff is Lev versus Team Vitality. This was a big deal, of course. The decider from Group C. Vitality were talking as if, you know, maybe they'd be able to get the W here, but no. Lev, they did handle business. The map 1, Icebox, was on their pick, and I think this kind of broke the back of Vitality in some way. Their mental seemed kind of chalked after they couldn't win this one. They had their chances, right? I mean, it was a close game really from start to finish. Liv, though, winning, 4 rounds in a row to get it to overtime and then winning the overtime, that's going to hurt for Vitality. And at that point, I think, obviously Lev had the momentum. They dominated the first half of Sunset, and at this point, it just wasn't even close. So, yeah, Vitality bow out of the tournament. Liv, of course, were favoured to get through this group, but after what we saw happen elsewhere in that group, of course, with Trace Esports, Liv, despite going in as tournament favourites, or at least right up there as one of the tournament favourites, they did still show that they've got what it takes here to take down Vitality. I know there have been questions on the future of Safe, for example, because he did mention his, kind of frustrations with the state of the game, and there's people that say, oh, maybe he's going to, retire or something. Very talented player. Hopefully he doesn't step away. Would be a big loss to the scene if he was to. I don't think he will, but, it's always frustrating to bow out, especially in this way, because I'm sure Vitality would have got in thinking, okay, getting through this group is going to be possible, but it just turns out Trace Esports are the truth, it seems, and Lev were just a bit too good on the day. But let's talk about some of this Rostermania stuff, because big questions, what's going to happen in the various regions. This is an interesting update as well, because Team Falcons, it seems, have actually decided not to continue investing in the men's circuit. They're actually going to hand that over instead to the Ultimate, another Saudi team, and they're going to sign 4 players of the Team Falcons roster to compete in the EMEA Ascension side, so Europe, Middle East and Africa. So, with the intention, of course, to win the entire thing. So that's pretty interesting. The team is now looking for a new duelist. The other big drama, though, was happening in the Americas, especially North America, and especially out of Cloud9, because every team that either didn't do so well, didn't make the playoffs, or made the playoffs and didn't do very well at the playoffs, or certainly just didn't qualify for the World Championship, they've got to decide what they're going to do for next season. And likely, the teams will probably wait to see what happens at the World Championship to see who might be available, because if G2 or Sentinels bomb out of the tournament now, then, who knows if there's a possibility for one of those guys. Could there be changes elsewhere? Could Cloud9 pick up the pieces or something? You never really know. So it's always a tricky one to decide. Do you pull the trigger now and you sign your new roster now and you sign your new players now and you figure everything out literally this second? Or do you wait a little bit longer to see what's going to happen elsewhere? And I think most teams will generally wait a little bit longer to see before they make their decisions in terms of the inbound players, but the outbound players, you can decide that relatively quickly, right? So Cloud9 say, following the conclusion of our VCT season, we are evaluating our options and actively rebuilding our team. We have informed Vanity that we are moving in a different direction come the 7th of October, and he is free to explore his options without a buyout at this time. So that, I guess, is when his contract is up. So if somebody else wants him now, they can buy him for some reason, or you can just say, hey, Vanity, we want you to join on October the 7th. You can join for free. So that's what they're going to do. So Vanity is still going to be a Cloud9 player until the 7th of October, so they could technically change their mind, but they probably aren't going to, right? And as he says, interested parties should reach out to Vanity or our general manager. So that's the decision they've made, and the in-game leader of the team is officially benched and allowed to explore options, and he will be free to go, free agent, no buyout, come the 7th of October. So was this the right decision from Cloud9? I would say you can definitely argue that it probably was. I think it's interesting that Vanity says that he's open to considering any region, any role, which first of all implies that it's not like he's got tons of options out there on the table, right? He's going to be considering where he might go. Maybe to another region makes a bit of sense, actually, because I'm not sure what other team in the Americas will look necessarily so much at Vanity here, because Cloud9, it's been quite the wild ride for them. I mean, what they did with Vanity initially, even with the Rooney thing, plus Rooney, minus Rooney, then they brought him back this year. Vanity, they added him, they got rid of him, they brought him back, and now they're getting rid of him again. So, I don't know if there's going to be another plus Vanity on the end here, presumably not, but their results just, simply weren't good enough, and they're deciding that core needs to go. I mean, couple of losses, of course, to Crew, knocking them out of the playoffs. That wasn't what they were planning for. The win against NRG was important, but, their season this is from their entire year, right? And it's just, they're not playing many games this year. Nobody's played many games this year, but, they got their ups and downs, but it just wasn't good enough for where they're trying to be, and not qualifying for the World Championship meant that, of course, something had to give. The question really is, what do you do with this roster? Who do you build around? The obvious man to build around, of course, is Oxy, right? He's the player that you really want to keep hold of. You definitely don't want to let anyone else get him from your team, I would say. Rooney can also in-game lead. I mean, I think that's worthy of consideration. To me, Rooney was like a really good find, to be honest. Like, this guy, talented player, and he, has leadership capabilities as well. I think you might just make Rooney the IGL again. You keep Oxy for sure, and everything else I would say is on the table, right? I think Moose is a pretty good player. I think Zephyr's a pretty good player, but I wouldn't personally guarantee those a spot on the team. So I'd look at probably keeping Rooney, probably keeping Oxy, and then seeing what happens from there. I guess one of the questions is, are they going to go budget, or do they actually have money to spend? Because if they have money to spend, I mean, maybe you don't keep Rooney, maybe you do. I don't know. There's some debate on that. Also, because of what's happening with Oxygen Esports, lots of talented players on that team that are potentially going to be without a home if that organisation actually does shut down. There's, you know, you could bring in Mitch, a couple of those other guys at Cloud9. I think that actually might make a fair bit of sense. So, few options for Cloud9, but definitely keep Oxy, and then kind of decide, are you going to pick up some tier 2 players and try and rebuild the team that way, or are you going to see who might be available from other teams that might be making changes to try and build a real powerhouse roster? But, you know, whatever they try, it doesn't seem to work that well. And just before we close out the video, Edward versus PaperX is currently starting up, and PaperX have taken an early advantage on the Icebox. So, you know, this is a classic series. You'll see this every single year. Edward play PaperX, and if PaperX win again, of course, they're going to advance through to the regular bracket. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.